Good evening to everyone and very warm greetings on this Saturday evening and for creating this time. This topic is fascinating, thriving with lightness and happiness amidst modern health challenges. There's a lot of energy in this word thriving, and wanted to share a quote by Virgil, Roman poet: "The greatest wealth is health." I don't know if you would agree with that. Um, this talk is interactive. We very much welcome your comments in the chat, any questions that come up. I think I might add to that happiness, and this topic deals with both. But what are we up against in this striving? And today we're going to be looking at physical health, mental health, and spiritual health, and how we can be empowering ourselves. So I'm going to ask our two speakers to come into camera. We're going to be starting with Dr. Namrata. She's a GP, general practitioner working in Cambridgeshire, and also doing a nutrition diploma in naturopathy, so she can explain and also pronounce it properly. But she's blending this East and West, the wisdom, with meditation also. So very rich to have her input. After that, we'll also be hearing from Dr. Prashant, and his background is in ENT surgery and also been working with understanding psyche for many decades. And we'll be hearing insights, also opportunity for discussion and your questions all along. So I'm going to now hand over to Namrata, who will take us through the subject. So good evening to you and very warm welcome.
Hello. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Sarah. Really good introduction. And welcome to everyone. Thank you for showing your interest in this very topical theme, because most of us are facing some form of health challenge, whether it's a small or big one. And not only that, there are challenges even accessing healthcare in the UK, we all know. And regardless of these challenges, people want to feel happy, they want to feel stable and have a fulfilling life. So we're going to explore how we're going to thrive despite those challenges, but also explore what challenges there are. I'm going to share my screen so we can go straight into that. Everybody can see?
Yes, it's good. Thank you.
The one thing I would like to suggest, those who are able to come in the camera, very welcome to come in the camera. It creates a more richer atmosphere. Yeah, please, Namrata, please go ahead.
No problem. So to start with, it would be good to maybe take a moment and reflect on a few questions. And the first one is it possible to stay light and happy in spite of challenges? If so, how do we do that? What are the practices? And why do we want to maintain that stability of mind despite challenges? Because I'm sure no one wants to, be running like headless chicken, kind of here and there, yo-yoing with emotions. As situations are good, we feel good. When situations are bad, we feel disturbed and we don't like it. And what we like, and to be honest, what I like is to be, in that resting stage when we are calm and we're steady, we have control. And we know that when we are calm and our mind is stable and light, we perform better. We are able to make better decisions in terms of challenges. And also, what are the forces that are opposing me in maintaining my health? Because sometimes it feels like many of us, we strive to have a healthy diet, healthy lifestyle, good relationship. But then it feels like things happen just to make me do the opposite. Sometimes it could be society, sometimes just general things. So what can I do? Or is there anything I can do to be more in control? So to explore this further, we're going to try and understand the blocks, whether they are from society, from external, or even the internal struggles in the 4 areas for optimal health, which is diet, exercise, sleep, and mind. So the next one, we're going to take an example of what we call an obesogenic society. So perhaps some may or may not have heard of this because it's a new term. And no, it doesn't just mean a society that has more people with kind of abnormal or excess weight. What it actually means is a society that's designed for promoting ill health and unhealthy weight gain. So it's a bit like the society is programmed, you know, like a computer game. It's programmed for people to be unhealthy, to eat unhealthy, be sedentary. And there we are trying to do the opposite. And this is important because it puts a strain not only on our health, but also on the NHS, i.e. the healthcare, and also the economy, because this society constitutes of the topmost common conditions like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and hypertension, but also musculoskeletal conditions like back pain, joint pains. And they actually constitute the highest number of people who go off sick, who we signed off sick and are unable to work. But what we find is, in spite of this, many of us will still keep going and try to be healthy. And in our health journey, we find 2 categories of people. So one category are those who are unhappy because they can't achieve their health goals, probably because of this programming. But the other ones who very kind of well achieve their health goals, however, interestingly, still remain unhappy, right? So we're going to explore these 2 categories of people, just give you some real life examples of what this one heard from patients. So very common one, I eat less and exercise more, but still can't lose weight. And this is really true, unlike what science would say, because from scientific point of view, it's less input, more output equals to weight loss. But we know this is not true because the biggest factor here is the stress that comes. And we may or may not know that stress releases what we call cortisol. Cortisol, it's a hormone, which is our natural steroid. And this is meant to make you put weight on. It's a fight and flight hormone, which basically your body releases a lot of sugar, but you're not fighting or flighting. So you store this sugar as fat and you can put weight on. And one example I have is of a lady. She was really, as in her situation was quite stable, very good finances, good relationship, good health. Externally, everything was fine, but she was overweight and trying to lose weight. And she just couldn't, and she couldn't understand. And when she found that she was actually being obsessed about her weight, that was the bane of her life, continuously thinking, that was putting stress and releasing all this cortisol. And this was defeating her purpose, instead of losing despite her eating healthy, exercising more. Once she recognized this, she kind of changed her mindset and prioritized, what mattered in terms of her happiness, her kind of embracing who she was, her acceptance. And once that fell into place, she automatically started kind of being more grateful for who she was and what she had. And her weight loss journey became easier and more fun, and she achieved it and maintained it, but to the point that it didn't really matter. Health-wise, it was important, but she was very comfortable, with whoever she was and however she looked. The other one we find is very common, long hours fasting and still can't lose weight. Fasting's become really popular nowadays, and for some people it works, but I find many people use it incorrectly, as in maybe their body doesn't agree with long hours of fasting and they end up having acid reflux, or they're deprived of nutrients because people reduce the essential nutrients. And these are important for healing and repair, so they end up having issues with their immune system, having infections and so forth. But the other one that we find is they go into starvation mode. So the body, is under stress, because not feeding the body is seen as a physical stress. So your body will retain more fat and sugars, and hence you can't lose weight. The other common thing I would like to mention is some people think that caffeine, tea and coffee, is included in their fasting period. And this is not true, because caffeine is a stimulant and it has the same impact of cortisol. So it gets you into this fight and flight mode. And I'm mentioning it because so many people are not aware. And first thing they do is wake up, have a cup of tea or coffee on an empty stomach, which can make them kind of hyperstimulated, and later on it can become more fidgety and anxious. Another common one: since my menopause, I seem to be gaining so much weight despite no change in lifestyle. And yes, this could be hormones, but there's so many other factors at play, which we will look at today. So hopefully this will help some people. And then even the commonest is, I lost all this weight and I gained them back again. And it's a shame, because you feel you put so much effort into that, but to no kind of long-term consequence. And this is because, to start with, it was not sustainable. It didn't fit with people's lifestyle. In doing that, people get frustrated. They feel guilty if they can't they had their cheat days, for example. And then with that guilt, you will have emotional or comfort eating, then there's more guilt. So yo-yoing of emotions up and down. And some people, we find, they get fed up, there's no motivation to continue. But the other thing is, when people focus just on their external looks, it can affect your confidence and the feeling of self-worth. So it's worth thinking, if we want to lose weight, that it is for health purposes and not kind of external beauty, because beauty is temporary. It will fade even if the weight is normal.
Someone is asking if it's possible to ask a question at this point.
Mm-hmm.
What about herbal teas while fasting or first thing in the morning?
Yeah. So herbal tea is absolutely fine as long as it doesn't have caffeine. So green tea has caffeine, but the other ones like fruit teas are generally fine, and they can count towards your water intake. Just the caffeine is the important one here. Right?
Thank you.
Now, looking at the other categories of people, you would thought, those are you who are struggling to achieve their health goals. When you look at someone else, you're like, oh, they've achieved and they've lost weight, they must be happy. But when you look at them down the line, they could have maintained it, their weight is okay, but happiness level back to square one. Some people go to the gym, they build muscles, look great, but there's no motivation to keep going. They don't feel fulfilled and they are unhappy. Some of them may still have some kind of infection. The immune system is still down and they wonder what could be going wrong. We'll look into that. And then recently I had someone who said, since retirement, 2 or 3 years after retirement, he's been in the best possible health he's ever been in terms of fitness, diet, sleep, and yet he doesn't feel happy. And who would have thought, I can't wait to retire to be happy. And he has, and yet still couldn't be happy. What we find here is there is a level of a baseline happiness. So those who are still unhappy, they've gone back to how they were before they achieved their goal, back to their baseline. And there was this research in Harvard University that found that when people have a goal, say they're buying a new house, maybe a new job, new phone, holiday, within 3 months, that initial happiness, that excitement they had, it goes back down. And when we say 3 months, it could even be 2 weeks, so it's up to 3 months. So it's worth thinking. And it's not about not buying things, but it's about, am I dependent is my happiness level dependent on those things? Because should I achieve them, would I be unhappy again? And the other thing to think about is, what is this baseline happiness? Is it like a programming in us? And what can we do to improve that baseline? Which could mean if it's high, then no matter what, whether we achieve our goals or not, we will still maintain that. And then there are the other categories of people, the third category, which we haven't mentioned here, but they are people who have health problems, health issues, but they're so happy with themselves. They're so fulfilled, full of life. And despite their health challenges, they seem to live longer. And we have many people like that, especially in the meditation kind of world. You'll see really bad, kind of worse health problems, but yet live to be high numbers, long, high life expectancy. So the question here is, does health bring happiness, or does happiness bring health? And yes, it could be both. But what I find is, with health, we know it's not permanent, in the sense that as we get older, everything gets old. Our organs, we are more likely to kind of have poorer health as we get older. But does that mean we get less happy? In fact, some people who get older seem to get, to be happier than the younger people we have nowadays, with all kind of brilliant health, brilliant possessions and all. And there's this famous saying that says, we don't stop playing because you grow old, but we grow old because we stop playing. And what it means is, when we lose that enthusiasm, that fun, that hobby, motivation and drive, it can affect our health. So true happiness is more permanent, is more long lasting when when one has this lightness and easiness and motivation. At least one can face challenges and maintain their health. What we look next is, for optimal health, usually we say we have to have a good diet, exercise the body, have a good quality sleep, and have a good mind, a beautiful mind, clean mind. And we find that the mind is the all-pervading factor in the 4 of these, because a healthy mind can mean that we naturally will have a good diet, exercise, and sleep. The reason is, with a good mindset and a right attitude, one will kind of naturally be able to make the right choices, be able to make the right decisions, you'll be able to say, if you fail, you'd have the motivation and the perseverance to keep going and maintain your health. And also, like we talk of all these opposing forces, so the mindset is really important to be aware of these forces, so we're able to manage these. So we'll look at each of them and the blocks and the hurdles that come in the way, because once we understand these blocks, we're able to manage them. And what I would say here, while we recognize some of these obstacles, it's not about judging ourselves. It's not about feeling guilty or blaming others, blaming society, but it's about recognizing, observing, and then, maybe decide, yes, this is something I can change, right? Now, what drives ill health? What we know is with modern society, there's such a huge rise in the food industry, all these fast food takeaways. We feel so attracted to go there and we keep going. I find that, we work so hard, gain a lot of money, and it becomes like an entertainment. Let's go to these fast food, let's take our children there. And somehow we kind of flourish that industry at the expense of our own health, because with fast food, it's not going to make us any healthier. It's a bit like it's a bit funny because you're paying them to then make you unhealthy, and then you have to invest in your health. So it's worth thinking about it. However, like we said, it's not to kind of blame ourselves that we can't resist those nice fast food chains. And even children, when they go on a drive, they'll identify, this is my favorite fast food, because there's a lot of addiction in that. And this is the purpose for this massive industry, the fast food industry or food industry, because a lot of money goes into research, into really identifying how can you reach what we call the bliss point. So for example, if they're creating a new crisp, they will look at the correct amount of salt, sugar, flavors, additives, something that will touch your taste buds. They will make you want it, they will make you crave it, but you will never feel full, you will never feel satisfied. And that's the purpose, because if you're satisfied, you won't go back. You're like, okay, I've had some, enough. But if you're not satisfied, you will keep going, keep paying them, and this is what they want, your money. And worth thinking of this palatability, so our taste buds, when we're so used to those flavors, the enhancers, sweet things, healthy food like carrots and all these beans, they taste very bland. But the good news is it takes about 7 to 10 days for our taste buds to change. This is up to 7-10 days. Some people do it in a day. And say if you're having you're used to having tea with sugar, and then next day you have one without sugar, you won't like it. You're like, don't like it, don't want it. But if you keep going, by the time it's the 4th or 5th day, it becomes normal, and you don't even feel the need for sugar. People with diabetes, it doesn't take them 10 days, if a new diagnosis, sorry. So if, I've had patient diagnosed today and it's like, yeah, not having sugar anymore, and they just cut it, and their taste buds get used to it. So it's quite reassuring to know that our taste buds change, and it's worth giving a try food that we believe that we don't like, right? Be aware of what we call the inappropriate marketing. So, you're going to the hospital for your health, and on the way, all these vending machines, all these colorful crisps and, fizzy drinks, chocolates. You're going to the petrol station. It's good when you pay at pump. I find it better. If you have to go inside the shop to pay, they will make you walk quite a bit of a distance with all these rows of, chocolates and crisps and all these colorful things. And the worst is you don't need them, but you buy them, and then if you have a 2 to 3 hours drive, you'd probably eat them while driving. which means you're not really moving your body. You're more likely to pile the weight. I've got someone who's raised their hand.
Yeah, feel free to write in the chat any questions. Yeah, thank you.
And same with schools. I find it very, I'd say disturbing. I'm sorry to say that, because children, you know, they get pocket money, but they have no choice in terms of what they buy. And if there are vending machines, yes, they will buy those fizzy drinks and they will get addicted. And you as parent may not have much choice. So something to think about. Supermarket layouts, be aware of the lightings. You know, a lot of the supermarkets, as soon as you walk in, the first thing you see are bakery items. You didn't go there to buy bakery, but you'd end up buying them. Make sure you eat, have a full stomach before you go shopping. We know that. And then, yes, this to ponder, you know, these high calorie drinks, especially during Christmas, you know, these caramel lattes and, you know, really nice. But have you ever looked at the calories? They could be 200 to 300 calories. And on top of that, would you like some extra cream? Would you like some extra this? That makes it 400, 500. It's more than a meal. So you're drinking a meal in a cup, and then you're having your 3 other meals, and you wonder how you're gaining, you know, 3 other healthy meals, and you wonder where you got the weight. That small coffee could be a meal, right? And how available, you know, is food nowadays? We don't even have to move an inch. You just ring them, they come to, you know, to your door. Thinking of childhood behavior. As a child, you know, child is crying. Next thing is give them a sweet, because the sweet will pacify them. You know, they give them a dopamine hit and they're like, oh yeah, sweet, quiet. But this is what we learned. We learn as adults. So when we face situations, we go for comfort eating because of that dopamine hit. And I wonder if we were to kind of reach out for carrots and potatoes and beans, would we have the same? Probably not. But just be aware, some of the behavior is from childhood. And think of ways that you'd pacify a child rather than reaching for sweet, because the child is not hungry. They might be upset for different reasons, for which they may need listening to, they may need a play or, you know, something different, but not always food. And same with overfeeding children. What we find is children, they have their natural instinct, they're close to their natural satiety and fullness signal. But as parents, sometimes, you know, we want them to finish the food that we've put for them on the table. So we tend to bribe them. If you finish your food, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. And what happens is when we lose that signal, then as adults, this is what we do. We don't know when we're hungry, when we're full, and we can overeat. And going back to palatability, you know, be aware of the kind of high sugar cereals that we give children, or even the baby food that we give them, because their taste bud change. And these children will not like carrots and peas and all because of the taste buds. So one aspect to be aware of is food that keeps you fuller for longer. So they're food that are high in fiber, the plant proteins, those that are healthy fats. They keep you fuller for longer, i.e. they balance your blood sugar. So you're not going to have kind of high highs and then low dips, because when you have low dips, that's when you crave and you're more likely to reach for more sugary things and kind of that vicious cycle continue. So as opposed to fast carbs, sugary things, caffeinated things, reach out for the healthier ones. Even you have kind of healthy snacks, which are, you know, high in proteins and healthy fats and fiber. But on the other hand, when we talk about the self, you know, when we as human beings, we feel very fulfilled. I mean, one is full in terms of our stomach and our health, but the other one is when mentally we're fulfilled and, you know, we have no need to buy an extra chocolate, we'll feel less attractive and less pulled to those unhealthy choices. And we'll talk about, you know, this fullness of the being eventually. So next, about exercise, I've put moving the body, because exercise is not always about running and going to the gym, because we find life is getting more and more sedentary, in terms that, more likely to sit in front of the TV, screen times, and, not really moving much. And we talk about the fast food, delivery, you ring them, they'll just come right to your doorstep, don't even have to move an inch. Then children playing more indoors with video games. There's lack of creativity. So for example, if you're to give a child a stick and a stone, they might go out and start inventing a game and use it. But if they're so used to be passive, passively watching movie, not really using the mind to create something, and always playing games, then they wouldn't want to move and be outside. And there's been such an exponential rise in obesity in children. Mention joint issues here, because the common things we find is I can't exercise because my knees hurt, I've got back pain. Exercise is not always walking. We need to think about muscle building, and they include our arm muscles, for example. So what we tell people is you can be sat there, but maybe take a bottle of water or a can of beans and start moving your arms, maybe up to the side. Anything against resistance will build muscle. If you can do planking, squatting, because more muscle, the higher the bulk of the muscle, means they process and balance your sugar levels better, because a lot of the sugars are stored in the muscles. But muscles also, they are involved in our energy production. So the higher our muscle mass, the more energy we feel, right? Then we also think about balance exercises and, the other things like dancing, swimming, those kind of stuff. I've mentioned blue zone countries. Some may have heard of it. For those who haven't, so these are pockets of places, in Japan, in Greece, in the USA, Costa Rica, and Italy, where people have an unusually high longevity, so very high life expectancy, centenarians, we call them, but no cancers, no kind of high cardiovascular disease, very healthy. And they've kind of looked, why do they live so long and so healthy? Few things. One was, having a sense of community, having a sense of purpose. And the main thing with exercise is they don't have set time to exercise. Their life is on the go. They're always moving, fidgeting, gardening, doing things, perhaps lifting heavy kind of, like utensils if they're cooking for a large family, building muscles. So constantly on the go. And that was quite interesting compared to society nowadays, where we work so hard. A lot of it is office-based job, and then we have to plan to, set time for exercise, which is also good, but just something to think about. And lastly, we tend to ignore that our brain and our lungs and all the organs, they're also muscles, right? So deep breathing exercises, to exercise the lungs, exercise the heart. And I put brain exercises, and you think, how do I massage the brain? And what we find, it's related to the mind, right? So when we are passive and we are, to be honest, it's social media, they make us less and less attentive. So our attention span, you could watch a 5 minutes video before, but that became too long. So now you'd watch 1 minute, and that's even too long. So 10 seconds is what you can tolerate. But the worst thing is after 10 seconds, you flick to the other one, flick to the next one. And how many more videos and how many more passive watching where you're not creating anything with your mind. And, exercising the mind and the brain, it's about concentration exercise. It's about, holding one thought, even for a minute, right? Or even for 10 seconds, like look out on the window, outside or anywhere, and think of something else, create a thought and stick to that. And if you can do that a few times a day, you'll notice that your focus increases, your memory increases, and paradoxically, even though you're pausing, what happens is you become more efficient and faster in what you do. And this is one of the secrets that a lot of the doctors ask me, what do I do to be efficient? This is what I do, is I pause, between, sometimes after every single patient, for even 10 seconds to rewire and exercise the brain, right? But what we find is with overthinking, we're coming to this poor quality sleep because some people may have 7, 8, 10 hours of sleep, but if you've been flicking through all these videos, creating, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of thoughts, when you're sleeping, your mind is still overactive. You think you're sleeping, but the mind continues, and you end up having poor quality sleep because you haven't rested the brain, you haven't rested the mind, and you end up waking up tired. You wonder, I've had 10 hours sleep, what's wrong? But then with poor quality comes weight gain, right? So people who have less sleep, research show that they're the people who are more likely to gain weight. There's hormonal imbalance and various hormones. The key ones are what we call the leptin and ghrelin. So leptin is a satiety hormone. It tells you the fullness, when you've eaten enough full. Ghrelin is the one that tells you you're hungry, right? But if you've lost those, if there's an imbalance, you don't know when you're full, you don't know when you're hungry, and you keep eating. With poor sleep comes the irritability, you feel tired, and then you will crave because you're feeling tired, and cravings mean back in the vicious cycle of either comfort food, sugary food, or caffeine. So many people rely on caffeine, tea, coffee, or green tea has some caffeine to stay awake. But, high caffeine, it can stay in your system for up to 12 hours sometimes. So back in this, this situation when you're drinking coffee to stay awake, but too much coffee, can't have good quality sleep. So thing to think about. And then lastly, I'm sure we've talked about the mind throughout this. But yes, stress. You might be happy, like we said in the beginning, good life, good house, good job. But the stress of something, of wanting to be healthy, but like we say, society is against you, you can't, you find yourself having, lack of willpower, you can't get motivated, or you're constantly feeling tired, you've done all your blood. These are very common things. What that we find is all my blood tests are okay, all the checks, had CT scans, doctors told me everything is fine, nothing to do, nothing else to do. And you're like, I am feeling it, and you're absolutely right. Your feeling is totally true, and there's so many things that we cannot check on blood tests. So these common conditions that are rising, like chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, chronic, tension headaches, or even pain syndrome, they're rising diagnosis. Even IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, all your blood tests will be normal, all your endoscopies and all will be normal. And you wonder what's wrong, right? So it's worth thinking of those 4 areas. But we talked about this, stress of struggling to lose weight, stress of over-exercising, because remember, exercise is a form of stress to the body, but it's a good form of stress because your body is then increasing its muscle. But some people, what happen is they have a healthy diet, eating kind of salads and vegetables and all, but when they over-exercise, they are not fueling their body. Perhaps their body needs more, proteins, more healthy fats, maybe more starchy or, the long-acting carbs. But because NHS says 5 a day and they have their 5 a day, they think that's enough. So worth thinking, am I putting more stress on my body? Should I be refueling? And then we talk about the stress of fasting, but also when we are not happy with how we are and who we are. Mindless eating in front of the TV, eating when one is not aware. we end up overeating because we're not in tune of when we are full. And what research has shown that every day, if you eat just 25 calories extra every day over a long period, it's a very tiny amount, but you end up, you can become obese. That's kind of very bad, kind of put a lot of weight. And you might think it's just a little bit extra, but be mindful with that. And yes, so this is the vicious cycle, when this lack of fulfillment for whatever reason, you end up comfort eating, you feel guilty. Out of guilt, you're going to eat more, and just kind of never ending. And you wonder where, it's so much frustration. Where do you start? And like we said, it's not about, blaming or feeling frustrated. It's just be aware of what we've talked about. And then the last thing, it's good to have all this information, but what do I do about this? Where do I begin? And the key that I find here is looking after the mind. And there are many ways for that. But what does that do is when we look after this human being, as opposed to the human doing, right? Because there's so much urge to just keep doing and keep working and keep, like entertainment on the go. It's really hard to just stop for a minute, so hard. But yet, when we learn to step back, we learn to pause, what we find is we feel more full. There's fullness of the being, so the self feels so much happy, so fulfilled, so satisfied. And this naturally flows into the physical fullness, as in, our diet, our exercise, our sleep naturally improves, right? And then we are less likely to be addicted or reach out, for those addictive food or processed food. We are more in control of our senses, because remember, this food industry, they will work on these colorful food and smell and taste to attract you. But when you're fulfilled, you kind of step back. You don't even think about wanting it. It's just there, and you pass by it. And we are more in tune with our inner being, with one's kind of fullness, And then we're empowered to make the right choices. We make good decisions of what we want and we don't want, what we don't want. Yeah, the willpower kind of comes, and all these opposing forces from society, from all that programming, we're able to naturally kind of be in it, but in a way be out of it, as in not be bothered by that. Yeah, I hope it makes sense. And that's the last of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's the word empowering really comes up. It's so helpful to get an overview and also more clarity on some of these details. I took benefit, especially from the muscle building myself, but the connection between stress and weight gain, what we're up against, and something simple, how the mind is connected to all these other aspects. So thank you for this. We're going to hear from Prashant, and then there'll be a chance for you to discuss together. Hi, Prashant.
Yes, hello. And, just want to check if I can use the whiteboard. And let me know if the sound is okay.
It's good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to Namrata. So detailed and so thorough understanding of life and health and the mind. Excellent. I might like to draw attention to everyone, those who are hearing this. Namrata mentioned, there is this cycle that goes on in everyone. They do something wrong, it creates a guilt feeling, or you feel a bit lack of self-respect, for doing things wrong, and that negative feeling that tends to take us to another wrong action. So we get into some kind of a spiral. we can turn it on its head, this whole the phenomena. Today we can take a decision to do something different, not just hear this nice discussion and subject, but in each of these areas, in diet, what is it that I can change? Maybe a small thing, what I can change. And it will create in you self-respect. And a small change, it can be. Like Namrata was saying, just sometimes the one may be having just 20 calories more or something. One is introducing in your life this, when you are having a meal, to eat little less. In fact, that is some very practical thing. When you stop eating when you are still hungry, that is very healthy. But each one can decide. In the subject of sleep, what is it that I can introduce that my sleep is good sleep? We do not need long sleep, but undisturbed sleep. Before going to sleep, not watching television or not getting in a letting some wrong impressions in the mind, and then you are giving a best chance, creating that. Namrata was mentioning, creating that minute where you are stepping back and learning some system of meditation before going to sleep, and then you give a different direction to your sleep. Introduce, try and see. In an exercise, whatever we are doing, can we introduce something more? And it will be very useful for our body as well as mind. Studies all over have shown there's some 20 minutes of exercise. It helps the body, it also helps the mind. And this is a subject of introducing some system where the mind is taken care of. But today I'm going to touch one more area, and that is just being sensible. I have observed with some patients, they observe in their life. It's like one person might say, such and such item may not be good for me. Because if I eat it, it sort of my stomach is not quite right after that. And that observation is very, very relevant. We all have got our own unique constitution and the body, and what is right for us and what is not right for us. Nature gives us a signal. And if someone has that little observation, being sensible, if we can say this, and you listen what nature tells you, to experiment, dropping certain things, avoiding certain situations, and see how you feel and how the body feels. And you definitely will live longer if you do this, because this is totally at a personal level, and you avoid the problem for life. Personally, I try to avoid taking medications for as far as possible. In one interview, some another country, there was some radio or television. It was connected with health, and someone asked me, "How is your health?" And I was able to tell him at that time that I have not taken a single pill of any kind for the last 25 years. And that was true at that time. Since then, body is getting old. So, but there is a tension to avoid medication. But what has happened is I was able to observe, what is not right for me. And there are always things, there are allergic factors, And because I'm not easily going for medication, I notice what is creating the problem, and I'm able to avoid that. And once I avoid it, then you are able to be healthy for good. You know exactly what your body needs and what body doesn't need. In the field of mind, and I would like to show mind has got full influence on the body, and I'm going to use this board. And within us, there is Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. This image of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, those who know the story, Dr. Jekyll is a good person, Mr. Hyde is a bad person. And the same Dr. Jekyll invents a solution. When he drinks that solution, he becomes Mr. Hyde. So within us, there are these two sides. If we can use some words for this, one side, the personality A, we can say, the side is personality D. I'm just using this random words. The A, they are not totally random. A, you can use it for angel, and D for demonic. But there are two extreme words, but that's why I'm avoiding it, to see the connection with these words. But A and D, let us say. And we approach this world with these two sides within us. And the problem with our personality D, it cannot see long term. It cannot see tomorrow. It cannot see future. It can only see now. He wants happiness now. He wants excitement now. That is the problem of personality D. Personality A, he can see tomorrow. That's all. And everyone wants happiness. Nothing wrong with that happiness. But who is going for happiness? Is it D or A? That is the question for us. If the side D goes for happiness, then there are penalties. That happiness becomes like a bait, and it creates a problem further down. When a fisherman puts a bait there, he is giving the fish happiness, and fish gets happiness, excitement for 5 seconds, and then finds itself in the frying pan. So in our lives, there are lots of, there is market of happiness is hot, and just now we heard, even if you are going to the petrol station, they offer lots of glitter, lots of colorful things for happiness. But we have to check, is this long-term happiness, long-term well-being, or is it short excitement? If they are going in the stomach of Mr. D, then I have to pay the penalty for it in one way or the other. It is guaranteed. The wise side, the wisest thing we can do is introduce in our life the structure to experience the long-term happiness, inner well-being. We want to be happy, so why not go for something that is natural to us, and there is no penalty to this. I will show, in one studies, with serotonin within our body. Serotonin is called, it is a neurotransmitter, and there are more than 100 neurotransmitters. Serotonin is just one of them, but it is called well-being factor. So if those who have a higher serotonin, they are happier. Large majority of depressed people have lower serotonin level. Those who have higher serotonin, they have more confidence in life and they do things better. Those with low serotonin, they cannot handle crisis. They will cry easily. They will get angry more easily. They are less in control with those who are low serotonin. And if we are to draw a graph of our serotonin level, let us say it is here. And at this point, if he smokes a cigarette, the level will go up. But next thing that happens, it comes below the starting point. We are talking about minute shift, but it is enough to create in him a little feeling of being low or a little depression. And he understands this. He is not feeling completely right, but he knows the answer. The answer is another cigarette. But as he does this, each time his resting level comes down. Body has got this something called feedback mechanism. Like if artificially you give sugar to the body will stop releasing sugar. Body whatever. If you give steroid, if you give thyroxine, body will stop producing thyroxine. Body has got this nice mechanism to maintain a certain level. So here it is artificially we have pushed serotonin. Body stops releasing serotonin and then stops producing serotonin. That's why the level continues to come down. So after 4 months, what happens is his resting level is much lower. And when he smokes cigarette, that is where he was to start with. And now he feels normal after smoking. And then after some time, even he needs to have cigarette plus coffee. So this is like a pattern. This is diagrammatic way of showing things, but this is the way it happens. What is seen with cigarettes, the same pattern is seen with many other things. And the list includes coffee, list includes chocolates, list includes your internet, list includes people. People get addicted to people, which means, say your children are with your parents, they have visited. It is possible mother may have low serotonin and feel depressed, even though she knows all children are well, but she is missing. So people become dependent on people. Some get addicted to noise, some get addicted to lust, some are addicted to violence. But this is the way our society is at the moment. These are not rare things. This is very, very common dependencies, totally linked with serotonin. And that's why some psychologists call our society low serotonin society. It is also called a society of addicts. More so today than 100 years ago. Our society is a low serotonin society. Why? Why today we are worse off than 100 years ago? What has happened in the last 100 years and more in a pronounced way last 40 years? We have more prosperity. People can afford more things. We have more technology. We have more science and we have more freedom. And all of this is absolutely hijacked by Mr. D within us. This is exactly, he can get what he wants. Click, and he can get what the hit. And this D, he has got many heads, and all these heads are becoming dependent on so many things. So this is why is in the medical books, one sentence is used: failure of success. All the governments all over the world are promising you more prosperity, more technology, more science, more freedom, and that is seen as a success, and definitely it is success. But what has happened, if the success is given to the wrong side within us, the demon within us gets success, it creates a bigger problem. And that explains why we have a low serotonin society, many cities, many countries, and there is a epidemic proportion of addictions. Some of the journals, psychiatry journals, they show mental health problems are becoming exponential in many places, and it is worldwide, and the direction is that way, because this deeper aspect is not paid attention to by the institutions and the political world. We are not paying attention to this side. But, okay, that is where we are. What can we do here ourselves? The good news is there is the side within us. There is an angel within us. And we have to see how we can bring him up, how we can work with the angel within us, how we can work with the angel within others. And this is like the very positive way of looking at things. But let us hear some comments from you. I was meaning to create that time for you to ask questions to Namrata also. But at this point, would you like to ask any questions or any comments from you?
Thank you for this. Yes, invitation, please to type in the chat. I had a quick question maybe from here. You mentioned about avoiding medication. Just for clarification, how much do you avoid? And is it a statement? Yeah, to what extent would you maybe ever take medication?
Yes, the guideline is not to go for medication as a instant, smallest little pain medication, sneeze medication, and to avoid that, to resist medication as much as possible, but not to be fanatic about it either. If there is need, there is a situation to be flexible with that. Giving chance to learn, giving chance for the nature to deal with it, and you will find there is benefit in it.
Nice, so a balanced approach, because depending on the condition, there may be a need, but not trying to avoid pain to the extent that you are not listening to a message that could be there that we would hide by just putting a medication. Yeah. Just query on that. From what was presented by Prashant, if Namrata would like to add anything at this stage.
With the medication, also be aware that some of them could be short term. So if you go to the doctors and your blood pressure is sky high and you're at risk of having a stroke or heart attack, they recommend it. it doesn't have to be long term. Just know that in the short term, it will help you while you're doing your lifestyle changes, which can take 2 to 3 months, and then eventually you can reduce it, right? So that, I think there are some medications that's needed for the short term because life could be at risk. But otherwise, no, happy with everything that's been presented. Even I'm learning some new things as well. So thank you.
Thank you. There's a question here, how to increase serotonin levels naturally other than exercise and good sleep?
Yes, this is where I'm coming also. And another factor within this, we said we want to be friend of the angel within us. How to work with the angel rather than the lower side within us. And to work with the angel within us, we need a broad intellect. I'm just using this word, but and we explain what it means. Broad as opposed to narrow. Now let me give an example. This is mother telling me the story of her boy. Let us say the name of the boy is Tony, and mother takes this boy to his friend. I think he was 3 or 4 years old, and the boy to his friend, and this boy Tony enjoys to be with his friend. When he comes home, he cries. Rest of the day he cries. So each week mother takes him to the boy, and he comes home, he cries. So what happens there? Obviously he's attached to the boy, attached to his friend, and so when he comes home, he misses his friend. What really is happening with children? We can't see the future very clearly. So they have visited the friend. They are there for 1 hour. For Tony, this exit, the end, after 1 hour I'm going to leave, that is not real. They cannot see the 1 hour, and that there is going to be exit. And if you do not see the exit, for you are going to be there forever. Consciously, subconsciously, he feels, I'm going to be here with my friend forever. And this understanding or this attitude allows him to go into the bondage, that he believes that I am going to be here, this place, I'm enjoying it so much, nice. And then suddenly the end comes, exit comes, and it disturbs him. It really bothers him. The mother is not disturbed because mother can more clearly see that 1 hour's time we are going to go. She already got other appointments, and mother is not disturbed by living. She's happy to come, happy to go. So there is this factor, we can't see the future. Children, they cannot see the future. They cannot see tomorrow. They cannot see next week. Adults, we can see tomorrow. We can see next week, but we can't see far enough. We can't see our own exit here. We can see, we are planning for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but our own death is not real to us. And when we are not seeing it, we go in this downward spiral. And that is when the personality D takes over. Personality D, as we said, you create a narrow intellect, then these short excitements, short baits, they have a market. They are there for your happiness, and they take you further down. That is the thing. The best thing we can do to ourselves is stretch our intellect. see the bigger map, and the most practical thing we can introduce in our life in a meditation. See immortality. Try and grapple with eternity. What is eternal? And just to reflect on this, even reflect on that reality beyond. We use the language sky beyond that exists forever. To stretch our intellect in front of eternity, even 1,000 years is like a very short time. So you are able to see on a different scale for that 1 minute. 1 minute you are seeing eternal existence. Sometimes some people say just looking at the sky, it's sort of like a relaxing for them. It shows that vastness. Our intellect is stretched. We are seeing on a different scale. So these are good to go beyond even our ordinary sky that exists forever and no changes, changeless, endless reality, timeless reality, and just you play with it for 1 minute. Life goes on. You play with it 1 more minute. Life goes on, and you will find you are stretching the intellect, and you are seeing on a different scale. And on that scale, your game is different. We sometimes give an example. You go in the garden. In the garden, there are butterflies. And the world of butterflies, they are with the flowers and fragrance and colors. And with other butterflies, they dance. Their life is a dance. They make other dance also. Great happiness. In the same garden, just you come a little bit down, there are slugs and there are earthworms and there are snails, and they are also in the same garden, same area, but their life is with stones and mud and dirt. That is their world. They don't even know that there are flowers there and their fragrance there. Their world is different. Something similar happens when we use the narrow intellect. We are, unfortunately, world is the same world, but that brings us to a downward spiral. We are going to the lower level. That becomes the world. And then you get the chocolates, and that is your happiness. And some kind of vices become the excitements, and some kind of indulgence and penalties there. But also, we think that is the happiness. And that is the world of Mr. D within us. Same word, same, but you are broadening your intellect. You are seeing now the world of the butterflies. Other things are still there, but your mind is at another level. You are seeing your inner happiness. You are seeing immortality. You feel you are beyond harm. Many things that were so big for you, you are now seeing beyond them, and you are discovering that inner happiness and inner peace. The question was how we raise serotonin. What happens is we have just seen the connection between serotonin and happiness. Here you are discovering happiness, inner happiness, that will raise serotonin. And to raise serotonin is secondary, but here the person is discovering supersensuous experiences and supersensuous, feelings of contentment, not because you have eaten more, you're content, but you're internally content. And then you are giving food to the body more as a trustee, what body needs, rather than your desperation. A different personality takes over, and that is personality A. When you are displaying with this, you are also understanding everyone has this option, and you are able to see in others this extraordinary potential. There is an angel there behind, and they do not need the chocolates and cakes to be happy. There is happiness in them. You are seeing that side, and your vision, your attitude, and maybe whatever, everything else that comes from there, that is promoting the angelic dominance in the other person. You are becoming friend of the angel in yourself and in others. Nice.
So, yeah, it's beautifully bringing together what Namrata was speaking about, very clear that we often feel empty, and this is why we, for different reasons, look to fill a gap. And the bottom line maybe behind is some insecurity, and then the drink or the food, the cigarette, whatever, feels like a treasure in a way, and maybe a reason for living also, like what is life if it's not for these experiences? So to play with the idea of widening the intellect, and first is to experience the being, and Namrata touched on it also. I'm sure she has a lot of insights from her own experiences. It triggers, I think it's deeply reassuring to know we can do that for ourselves, and no industry is going to necessarily promote that, unfortunately, the way that it is. So we have to take that responsibility also. Yes, some comments, it's very clear, but I'm happy if anyone has questions on this.
Just want to bring in one more aspect here, just to complete the gaps. Just like we have microscope, and with microscope I know many things, but when you use telescope, you come to discover things which microscope cannot help you, but you discover things. Something similar here, when you are training to sharpen your broad intellect, it is almost like developing within you this ability to see beyond the gross, beyond the mundane, and then you are able to see your own immortality. You discover the real you. It is a bit more like that. You are able to see the real personality behind the body that exists. The subtlety, you are able to see that side, and that is all helping you to discover that higher personality. Whenever anyone is secure, you discover your immortality. Everyone on this planet doing they act from greed, they act from violence because they want to survive. That is what that they break their own moral code because they want to survive. Here you discover that you are safe. You feel safe with all kinds of situations and all kinds of personality because you know you are immortal. And everyone knows in some level, that's why there is a word term immortal. But in this case, it becomes obvious your experience that creates a deeper sense of security. And when you're secure, it brings out the best in you. When you feel deeply secure not because you got lots of gold or you got lots of cakes or you have eaten lots of food, but secure beyond that those gross things, and that brings up your higher personality, and that's why that helps you to see the world of butterflies. And then the down below, slugs and snails and stones, they are also nice as long as you are seeing them from beyond.
Interesting that it's the same garden, but just a matter of perspective. And Namrata also brought in this aspect of mindset. So it's feeling like what we need some new information, as if, because many of these things we kind of knew to some extent, but to see it so clearly framed. Question, is it a good idea to have an ideal, a person, an example to act as a model for our efforts?
And sure, here we are talking about the things beyond this level. We are seeing here a gross level, temporary things, as if we are at present in the world of um, what gross world. We have to start discovering it. There is no shortcut other than playing with our broad intellect and subtle intellect. There is no shortcut. With narrow intellect, we can't see the role models, that we need here. But they very soon discover, a bit like once you start using telescope, then you will continue to discover the sky. From first day, you will start seeing the sky. It will just need refinement.
Thank you. And there's finding it very beneficial. This gone into a lot of depth, and of course, having company of others who are also experimenting and experiencing a huge benefit from taking care of the mind and stretching the intellect. I think that can be helpful as well. So maybe a reference point in that way. So I don't know if Namrata, it'd be great to hear you. I know you're also a meditator for some years, and any insights, your personal experiences on anything that's been mentioned. And I also know there's some questions in the chat. So let's, should we come to you?
Yeah, so there was this comment on fibromyalgia and mental health. And fibromyalgia is a chronic pain, people feel pain, and this is really common. And people may assume that, oh, because I'm meditating, all my pain will go away. And then you get disillusioned, and you might be a meditator and have the pain and have mental health problems. So it's really good to understand what's happening and to deal with it. So what science says about pain, so any pain that people feel, they say it's coming from the brain. So even if you're feeling it, so say there's a footballer, we've seen that so many times, they're running after a ball, playing, they want to win the game. And while doing that, they've kind of torn their Achilles, right? That's a proper tear, proper reason for pain. But because they're so much into the game, they don't even realize this. They keep running until they hit the ball, and then after a few minutes, or maybe sometimes when the game ends, then they realize, actually, I've torn my Achilles, right? And then you think, what's happened that they overridden, that pain? So they translated it to these chronic pain syndromes. So, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, tension, headaches, and all, where we don't have any medical kind of diagnosis. So all scans, all blood tests are normal, but you're still having it. So what they say is, it's your brain that's firing information, false information to your body, right? And then they say, so how can you override this? And they might say, maybe first thing is you have to accept, be in acceptance that, okay, it's there. Don't reject it. Don't question it. Why? But acknowledge it, validate that it's there. And then they tell you to use some distraction therapy. Distraction means do things that will take your mind away from it, like things that makes you happy, talk to other people and stuff like that. But the way we see it on a spiritual model, it is your mind, right? And your mind, so who you are as the being and your mind is totally separate from the feelings of pain. So you are not your feelings, you're not your emotions. So the way you look at it and the way to distract is this analogy of the sky. So you can imagine you are in the sky, clear blue sky, and you see the clouds passing underneath you. And it's very clear distinction that you're not the clouds, you are actually in the sky. So these clouds, they are the pain. And the fact that you're observing it, you won't feel it. You can observe the pain going and you accept that, oh, it's there, but you don't own it, right? So it's not like that's me, and I'm in pain. So I don't own it. Let me observe it passing through. I don't suppress it. I don't question it. I don't reject it. It's just there, like a train passing through, and you observe it. And with this practice, what happens is it ends up that you don't feel the pain anymore. You just, it comes, you observe it, it goes, and you clap your hands and you go and do the next one. So that's the observing kind of the practice that people can do. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So practical. And then I love this quote that helps me to understand the difference there. Christopher Reeves, the one that played Superman, that pain is inevitable, but misery is a choice. And of course, easy to say the quote and the words, but that it helps at least break down that we don't have to be experiencing the sorrow, and that we can, with that wisdom, gentleness, and self-care for the mind and the spirit, can start to bring in. So yeah, there was a comment. Thank you. Very helpful. So I think we've almost come to time, and to maybe have a bit of an experience of the meditation, we might ask Prashant to do that. But if Namrat has anything final to share, she's good. Yeah. So someone's written, distraction can really work when refocusing on not too severe pain, right? Yes, so Prashant, anything you want to add? And then also maybe a few words of commentary would be great.
Yeah, sure. And I like this word, observer, and this question, which idol how to experience that higher personality, higher consciousness within us. Let us be the observer, instead of me, be the observer of what you thought is me. And the observer is naturally beyond. And use the word invisible observer. And immediately you are giving chance to that different perspective altogether. Invisible observer, observing everything that happens, that is happening now, what happened, is aware of it, is observing it. Invisible observer, he has different world beyond. His world is timeless. All along we are grappling with this. We are seeing that expanse, and this is the sky beyond the sky. All along we are aware of the whole physical world and everything. We see it as if it is happening down below. But at the same time, we are experiencing that expanse, world of complete silence. If need be, we can practice this with eyes closed, whatever that helps the experience. Timeless, changeless, endless. And in this expanse is the invisible observer. And we see this invisible observer in the image of a living star. With a backdrop of many stars. This world is eternal, exists forever, and this invisible observer is immortal. He knows his complete independence from the physical world. That's why he is the observer of that physical world. But he needs nothing from the physical world. That's why his life is of peace. Needs nothing. That is life of silent contentment, silent happiness. As we continue on our journey in the sky and on earth, we remain aware of the beautiful truth of all of us. We have the option of the sky. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Namrata, to Prashant, this opportunity. We're going to put in the chat some details how you can get the recording and also the events on from Cambridge Inner Space online and in person. Come to Cambridge, we have half-day retreats. It'd be lovely to meet you. And also this putting one thing into practice. So many practical things were mentioned. For me, I might just cut down on that doom scrolling. It's realizing what it can do to the mind, taking care of the mind. So many things, and enjoying the process. So we look forward to connecting again, and good luck, and and thanks. See you next time.